I'm going to use the Get Information About Schools website to look for an academy and look into some of those academy accounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the name of one of the, well, there is only one academy in this particular trust, and it's called Hope Academy. And when we go to the Hope Academy record, we'll see that it's an academy in St Helens. We've got the head teacher and principal's name, and we can also see here that it's a single academy trust, and the trust name is Newton Academy Trust, and the academy sponsor is the Archdiocese of Liverpool. We can go to the tab down here that shows for Ofsted reports, and if we go to the School Financial Benchmarking website, we can see information about the academy's accounts. They only go back to 1819, but it does show a substantial in-year balance of unspent income, which is a considerable percentage of the school budget. I'm just going to change to the balance tab just to have a look at what that looks like over the last number of years, and I can see that it has been going up. Let's just view that information as a table so we can see. So it started off with a massive overspend 5 years ago, 5 years prior to the most recent information. It was really overspending, and it'd be interesting to know actually what its plans are for all of those reserves, because that money should be being spent on the young people. If we look then at the revenue reserves below, actually the picture is different here. So this is the cash in bank that they have available to spend, and it does appear that 1819 was the first year that they actually started to develop some reserves. Fairly modest for a school of its size, I would say. Maximum reserves really for a secondary school, certainly maintained or voluntary aided, shouldn't be exceeding 8% of the total income. And if we go to the total income for the school here, we see that that's 6.57 million. So 8% of that's going to be circa £500,000 on a quick calculation. So if the reserves, let's go back to the balance, if the revenue reserves were approaching £500,000 or going over that, that's the time to be asking questions actually about where's that money going. Be interesting to know how they managed to save such substantial amounts of money compared to the income that they had in the previous years. So that'd be a question perhaps to be asked at a JCNC meeting if we have those in the academy. I'd like to go back though to the previous to get information about schools website. In fact, I'll go to the tab here. What we can see is the Single Academy Trust. So if we select the Single Academy Trust name, which is in blue, that will take us to another record which gives us some details about the academy. We can see when it first was incorporated in January 2008. But a key piece of information and a link here is the first piece of information, company house number, and you can see the number there, but importantly, by selecting this, it opens in a new tab. This takes us to the company house information. I need to accept the analytical cookies, so that will disappear. And I'll hide this message at the top. So there's a wealth of information if you've not been to a company house record before. We've got the overview of the trust. We can see when their next accounts are due by the 31st of May 2022. We can also see that there are 3 other tabs beside the overview. There's filing, history, people, and more. I'm going to start with the people because it may well be of interest to branch officers, or if you're attending a JCNC, to understand who the current trustees are. And we can see first of all that there are 39 officers, which sounds like an awful lot, but 27 of those have actually resigned since the trust has been formed back in 2008. So over the last 13 years, 27 resignations have taken place. I'm not going to scroll through all of these, but the first list of names will be presented for the active current trustees or officers. If we scroll down, you can see those names, and we'll eventually come to the section of names that are resigned. And those are, I think they're done in, I don't think they're stored alphabetically, so if there's anyone in particular you're looking for, you'd have to scroll all the way through. You can select, as you can see those names are in blue, you can select the name of any of the officers. I'll go down to one, I think, Dr. Richardson, it might be a good choice. Yeah, here we go. So Dr. Jonathan Kent Richardson, total number of appointments 8. That means he's listed as a director in 8 other companies. We can see the date of birth if that's of any interest, but importantly, this might be of interest, especially if they're an active director, to see what other academy trusts or business interests they have. So you can scroll down through those, and if you choose any of those in particular, it will take you to those academy trusts. Let's have a little look here. So Kensington Academy Trust, that may or may not be of interest to a particular caseworker. So I'm just going to go back to the Newton Academy Trust information, and this is where we started with the people. I'm going to go now into the filing history, and you can see that there's the opportunity to put some filters in. We've got accounts, capital charges, and you can see the other names as well. I'm going to start with the accounts. And because this trust has been set up since 2008, there is a long history of annual financial accounts. I'm going to start, well, I'm only going to show you the full accounts for 2020. And hopefully, I'd like to just draw your attention to what I believe are some of the key useful pieces of information for a caseworker or a local secretary in advance of potentially engaging with the employer, preparing for a JCNC meeting, or answering questions for members. This information, as you will see, and should be clear to you, is publicly available, so there's no problem sharing any of this with the members or the workplace rep. So I'm going to view the PDF for Newton Academy Trust, and I draw your attention first of all to some information on the first page. The first page shows who the current members are and who the current trustees are, and we can see if there has been any change. If there have been any changes in the last 12 months, we can see that there have been 2 resignations. One, a Martin Francis Cogley, and one, Mr. Patrick Ferguson, the previous principal, resigned. Because they've resigned and they were trustees, you can go back into the people part of Company House, find those individuals and see if they have any other company links. And I do know that of interest, because I've looked into it, Patrick Ferguson does have a number of other company interests. We can also see listed here as well on the first page, which is common practice, that the senior management team are listed, the principal, the vice principal, head of school, as you can see, and the chief financial officer as well. The next piece of information I think that's useful to recognise is potentially the number of pupils in the school. We can see here the total capacity is 1,650, and there is the current pupil numbers as of October 2020 were 1,295. So there is the capacity for the school to increase the number of pupils. And again, increased pupils means increased income. Increased income means more job security, or the potential for the growth of employment across different job families. So that's something that may well be worth noting for discussions with the employer. And looking at the trend of that information over the last few years, and we've got this data going back in the Company House accounts for the last 10 or 12 years, we can definitely see that. Other information that's useful to draw your attention to, I think, is trade union facility time. And I can see here, sadly, that this academy doesn't spend any money on facility time. So that tells me they don't buy back into the local authority facility time. So that would be something that we would hope that the local branch officer in this case would be trying to persuade the academy to do. And of course, NASUWT is a range of facility time model agreements that can be used to support that discussion, as well as in discussion with caseworkers. there's a large amount of statistical, strategic information here about what the Academy does. It may well be that you wish to read through that. It's usually historic information about the previous academic year's results. Information here in the Trustees report about whether it's assessment about a going concern. But on the next page we should find, and this is about the impact of COVID-19, the reserve policy of the Trust. It's not uncommon to see a particular percentage of the GAG, which is the grant. Oh, I'll have to come back to what that means in a second. The income for the number of students. I'll get you the GAG definition in a second. A percentage in here that the school wishes to, or the Academy wishes to hold in reserve. And we can see currently that the reserves on the first line at the top of this page are sitting at 484,000, and in the previous year they were 407,000. So the reserves are increasing. I mean, there are restricted general funds and other funds mentioned, but the key one to look at is current reserves. That's how much effectively cash at hand that the Academy has. Now I'm going to scroll down through much of the rest because this is about performance data for Key Stage 4, key strategic information, and the next bit really that's worth a look at, actually, let's just scroll back up here. It shows the Trustees listed by the number of meetings they have attended out of a total number. Again, that might be useful information, particularly if there's a trustee who's not attending very many meetings. Again, that might be a question you wish to raise if that was the case. For example, here I can see there's a trustee by the name of Miss Marie Adams, who's actually the new head teacher, principal, identified further above, who's a staff governor who attended 0 out of 3 possible finance meetings. I wonder why that is. Why would a governor who's able to attend not be attending? I'm going to scroll down a few more pages now to the next section, and GAG will be defined here. And we'll see the sum of the GAG. Must be on the next page. Let me scroll through. I mean, there's a lot of numbers here, but I want to draw your attention to the key numbers that I certainly find helpful in preparation for meetings with the Trust or meetings that we may have planned for the staff. So GAG is General Annual Grant, and that's the amount that they receive for the pupils. There we go, and we can see that the GAG value here is £5.874 million, which has actually gone up since the 2019 figure, which would seem to indicate to me that there's been a slight increase in pupil numbers. So we're starting to move into some fairly possibly useful information. It depends what that shows, of course, and we can see here that agency staffing costs have almost doubled from 2019 to 2020, and there may well be some very logical reasons for that. Could be a number of long-term absences, but of course it does raise a question in our mind as caseworkers about general staff well-being if supply costs have gone up. So again, it may be an innocent question to ask of the employer if we do have a JCNC meeting with the employer. We can see also on this particular set of accounts that there were no redundancy payments in 2020, which is good, although there was £5,000 a year before, and also there have been no severance agreements, or severance payments, I should say, in 2020. If there are severance payments in the account, the need to list the individual amounts, not to who they went to, but how much the individual amounts were, and you would see that in other accounts. Other information that's potentially useful to look at are around the staff numbers. You can see the teacher numbers have marginally increased, administration and supports decreased, as have management. So the redundancy payment in the column above for 2019, I imagine will be associated with those reductions either in the admin and support or management side. In Academy accounts, if you're not familiar with them, they do have to list all staff who are paid £60,000 or more. And I can see here that, well, first of all, with a school population of around 1,250 pupils, I'd be very keen to know how they can justify a salary of 160 to 170,000 pounds back in 2019. I think the maximum salary for the largest secondary school in the largest group size in the school teachers paying conditions is somewhere around 107 or 108,000 pounds. I also note that there are 5 high paid staff in 2019, and that's been reduced in 2020. So there's a story to be told there. There's a narrative that would be helpful to know from the employer about how it's made those decisions. Of course, the increase of the salary band 70 to 80,000 to 80 to 90,000 for two individuals, may be the pay award has tipped them into that, and that's an innocent enough explanation. And even though the highest paid member of staff salary has gone down from the 160 to 170,000 bracket to 140 to 150, that bracket of 140 to 150,000 pounds is still, I would suggest, almost 50% above the maximum salary of school teachers paying conditions, and does require some scrutiny and explanation. We can see some other information down here that's helpful. We can see the key management personnel information, actually the total cost, and those roles are defined on page 1, and I think I did read them out: the principal, the vice principal, the chief financial officer, and there were a number of other posts. Have actually reduced, which isn't a bad thing. It means that less money is being used, clearly, and almost gone down by £100,000. We can see that the previous head teacher, who we now know has resigned, from the information on page 1, was paid £164,000, £272 in 2019, which is an obscene amount of public money to be used for a head teacher of a school with 1,250 odd children in. But there are no pension contributions, which would suggest that the individual is retired and drawing either their teacher's pension, which is most often the case for CEOs or principals, or they're drawing their local government pension scheme. The remuneration for the 2020 year had reduced to £142,000. So again, there's a decision's been made there by the Board of Trustees to do that, and it'd be interesting to know what that is. I'm going to scroll through the next number of pages, which are about pensions, both teachers' pensions and local government pension scheme. I'm not suggesting that those aren't relevant, but I think the place to next look for some key information is in the related party transactions. And it's often the case for related party transactions that there's no information to report, but there's quite a lot of information reported in this particular set of accounts. And we can see that Liverpool Hope University, which is a sponsor of the Academy, has made an additional endowment fund payment of £0 for 2020, but the previous year they donated £35,000. Something that's going to need some further scrutiny, and I'm not going to do that in this recording, but it does note that during the year, St Francis of Xavier College, which is in Liverpool, not in St Helens, where Patrick Ferguson is also a director, had been sold services to the value of £0 in 2020, or nil, but £123,984 in 2019. What were those services? That's a key question that we need to find the answer to. And if we don't have a JCNC in the school, or a TURA that facilitates that, then a letter directly to the trustees should be sent on that basis. We can also see that there were services purchased to the value of just over £20,000 for the Archdiocese and a connected party to a trustee. What's the narrative around that? And we could go on through that. We also see that in the last bullet point that the Liverpool Joint Catholic and Church of England Academies, of which Patrick Ferguson is also director, has been sold services of £27,579. I wonder what Newton Academy sold them, and we could ask not only Newton Academy, whose accounts we're looking at, but we could also ask our colleagues in Liverpool to find the answer out from the Liverpool Joint Catholic and Church of England academies. So quite a lot of useful information that's posing a lot of questions. I'm going to end the recording here, but of course this activity could be and potentially should be done for this academy for previous year's financial accounts, and yeah, lots of useful information.